demonstration of using the netscaler VPX to set up global server load balancing in an active passive mode within the software infrastructure. My name is owusu-ansah, and I'm part of the software enterprise onboard and SWAT team here. This is going to be a demonstration. I have a few slides to ease us into the demonstration and hopefully make it a smooth flow. The agenda is basically we have a brief overview of the netscaler VPX with a listing of some of the features. Discuss how the global server load balancing is used within the software infrastructure. A sample configuration visualizer just so you can visualize how it's supposed to typically would look like, and a demo configuration with the configuration parameters or information that we'll use for the demonstration. Okay, so the netscaler VPX is a full application delivery controller, and what that basically encompasses that it helps accelerate your application performance, helps you protect your application from all sorts of security concerns, and also makes your application highly available at all times. And so you can basically use it to avail your applications to the various users using the various means that the netscaler gives. These are some of the some of the main features: load balancing, and this is traditional load balancing to various servers, including databases, and also global server load balancing. That's where you're load balancing data at different sites or different data centers typically. You are able to do your load balancing at the layer 4 level, and you also have layer 7 content switching. You have application acceleration, able to do an SSL offloading, caching, DDoS protection, web application firewall, and many more, depending on the license that you do have for the netscaler that you provisioned. Typically, when you use the netscaler as a global server load balancing configuration, you have servers in different data centers or different data sites, and you are trying to configure the load global server load balancing, so data will be spread, requests will be spread to the various different sites according to some mechanism or some distribution mode or configuration that you have in place. When you're using it as a local global server load balancer, you already would have the different netscalers already handling the basic load balancing at the various centers, and then you set up a GLSLB configuration where you basically respond to requests with the different load balancing virtual servers at the different sites, and essentially spread your data to the different data or requests to the different sites. You do need platinum licenses to run the global server load balancing mode, and once provisioned, and with the platinum license or any other license, you have all the capabilities that the license avails to you within the software infrastructure. Okay. Today's demonstration will just be about setting up the global server load balancing in an active passive mode. Essentially, what that mean? That means is you have a netscaler at different sites, 2 in our test here. Each of them already balancing load balancing a bunch of servers. In our case, web servers, and you want to set it up in a way that one server becomes the master virtual server at one site, or the master site, and the other site becomes delegated as the backup. And typically, what would happen? It will be some sort of a disaster recovery configuration. If anything happens to their master site, the backup site will pick it up and behave as such, or serve the request as you need them. So there are different modes: active, one of them; active passive is the other one, and there are other modes that you can set up. Essentially, for the setup, what do you do for each of the netscaler and representing the sites is that you make sure the GLSLB features enable. Um, you do add an ADNS service, authoritative DNS service, or a local name server to the netscaler, so that the netscaler becomes the ADNS services domain request for the domain which represents your global server load balancing. If the domain that you are servicing is a subdomain of a parent domain, then you have to make sure the parent domain does the necessary name server delegations, so that the if our domain, which is going to be webservice.marco.com, then you have to make sure that marco.com does a delegation, so that any request meant for webservice.marco.com will initially start at marco.com, and then marco.com should be able to delegate those services or those requests for web service to the netscaler, which will be handling it. So we'll see how all that works in a few minutes here. You go ahead and you create your sites, the local and the remote sites, which will be the two sites that you're playing with. You create services, GLSLB services, local and remote. Each service will basically link to a load balancing virtual server at a site. Create master and backup virtual servers. These are the global server load balancing virtual servers. For the master GLSLB virtual server, you bind one of the services to it, which will be the one that you want to be the master service. Bind the domain to it, and then specify the backup virtual server. Right. At this point, the backup virtual server, it's been created, but it hasn't necessarily been configured. And then you go to the backup virtual server. You bind the other service to it, which will be supposedly the backup service, and then you can make various configuration, including disabling the primary, which will be the master when it's down. Essentially, you complete one site or one netscaler's configuration, make sure it's all complete, and then you move on to the other side. When you complete the configuration at both netscalers, you synchronize both of them, and then you do the testing to make sure everything is working. This is what it would look like in a master backup mode. You could have both. You could have both of these up and running, but the master backup mode will be servicing for the domain webservice.marco.com, and it's going to keep servicing for it, even though nothing goes to the backup environment. So the Dallas netscaler or the Dallas site will be servicing the domain until something happens, and for whatever reason the Dallas site becomes unavailable. At that point, the backup site or the backup netscaler will pick up and then service the request out of Seattle. This is just conceptually, this is what it would look like. They are both going to be servicing the same domain. If the primary, for whatever reason, goes down or it's not reachable, the backup will pick up. This is the configuration that we are going to be using, and this is what we'll be configuring in a minute. The global domain, the domain that we're servicing is the webservice.marco.com. The global GLSLB virtual servers, there will be two of them. One will be the master out of Dallas, and the backup will be out of Seattle. These are the sites that we are configuring. So this is a site. The sites will basically correspond to the load balancing virtual servers at each site, or the netscalers, essentially. And then these are the services. Each service actually links to one of the load balancing virtual servers. So we'll link the Dallas service to the Dallas virtual server and make that a master. We'll link the service, yes, this GLCLB service in Dallas to the master, and then we'll link the Seattle one to the backup. This is information about the individual boxes themselves, the netscalers, um, the IP addresses that we may use, and then these are the existing load balancing virtual servers that are already active and servicing various web servers or distributing for other web servers in use already. One thing to note is that these addresses for the sites, these are addresses that we picked out, or these are addresses out of the however many we ordered when you first ordered the netscalers. So these are addresses that will be reserved on the netscaler for use, whatever use we decide to have them. In this case, we are using them for sites. We'll see them in a minute. Okay, so back to we get to the console now. What I have here is I've filtered the console, the devices on the console to the netscalers, so you can see what netscalers we are playing with, or we there's one netscaler in Dallas and there's another one in Seattle. Essentially, what we'll be doing is we'll make the Dallas netscaler will be the master netscaler. It's going to be servicing a load balancing virtual server that's already in Dallas. We'll make that the master, and similarly we'll do the Seattle one and make Seattle one the backup. If I go in here, I'll just go in here briefly for the netscalers. As I mentioned, these are the IP addresses. We chose one. I've chosen one for site IP, right? And similarly, I'll go back there and show the other one for the Dallas one. And again, I've chosen another IP address here for it. Okay, you can you can see that we have the private IP addresses are how we are going to be accessing it. You should be able to access them from manage device here and do both of them. Just as a way of showing the servers, what I have is I have let me bring up a bunch of servers here to okay. So these are the servers, and as you can see, there are four web servers. They are in two of them in Seattle and two of them in Dallas. I have the Dallas NetScaler managing load balancing for the last two, and I have the Seattle NetScaler load balancing for the first two. In our setup, what ends up happening is the Dallas will become the master, so it's going to be load balancing. It's going to be 7, 3, and 4, and for whatever reason, if it goes down, then 1 and 2 becomes the masters. The backup resume the services for the domain. So let's start with the go to the master environment. Um, this is the master. This is the master netscaler, the netscaler in Dallas. I just happen to know the addresses, so you could easily access them using the managed device here, and it has to be done within their private network, right? So so this is the master 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 device, or the master netscaler here. This will be the master site. Okay, let's start the services. First off, make sure the GLCB is enabled. The feature is enabled. If it's not, you just come here and click it again. It's already enabled. Now let's create the ADNS service, which is essentially a local name server. Even though we are creating a service here, ADNS service. We'll create add here. Service name will be ADNS. Let me have a cheat sheet here. Service name will be ADNS. Okay, get the service name will be ADNS Dallas. Okay, the address will be the physical machine itself. That's what we use. So for Dallas, it's 169.53.14 and 7. 169.53.14 and 7. Okay. It's going to be an ADNS server. So we choose the ADNS protocol, and notice that it goes to port 53. No, you probably would already know that port 53 is usually the port for DNS services or LDAP services, or DNS services, excuse me. So it behaves the same way as a DNS service, and it's going to be responding for the domain for which our GLCB service will be set up for. Okay. Okay. So now this is set up. Done. Everything is going to be very vanilla, so I'm not going to be making a lot of configuration changes. Okay. So now let's go to the global server load balancing site. Let's set up the sites. First off is let's set up the master site. The master will be GLCB master. And this will be in Dallas. It will be local to this here, and the address for the site in Dallas is 169.53.53.73. 169.53.73. We'll just create. Notice that you could have had an internal address for the site IP, and then you have a public address for the public IP. I'm just going to keep these the same for now. Okay, and then we add the GLCB. This is backup. This will be remote, and the address, this will be the address from Seattle. Okay. 173.192.161.153. 173.161. We'll keep the public address the same, 173.161.153, and then we'll just create also. Notice that we've created the sites. Now let's create the services. And the services will be corresponding to the existing load balancing virtual servers that already exist at the various at the other sites. So we create at a site. We'll call the site name. We'll just use names that we have. Create a service. The service will be GLSLB service Dallas. Dallas. It will correspond to the master, which is in Dallas. It's going to be a virtual server, and it's going to be the same virtual server that already exists in Dallas. This is going to be load balancing virtual server that exists in Dallas. It's already going to fill all the stuff in there for us also. So, okay, and done. We'll go ahead and add the second one, which will be the GLSLB service for Seattle. This will be the backup service. Okay, this will correspond to the backup, and you see the IP-based HTTP port 80. And even though it is a virtual server, because it hasn't been recorded here already, it doesn't know about it, so it doesn't show the virtual server option. We can simply just pick it up as a new server, and then still supply with the virtual server address from Seattle. The virtual server load balancing virtual server is 173.192.161.152. It's going to be on port 80 for now. Everything will be done on port 80. Save. Okay. So now done. Okay. What we have now is we have the sites, we have the services. Now let's set up the virtual servers. So for the virtual servers, we just set up. They have to be this will be the master service, the master virtual server. So do GLSLB master virtual server. We'll just keep it this way, and then for now we'll just save it. Done. And then we'll create this one here. Will be GLSLB backup virtual server. And again done for now. Okay. So now that we have our virtual service here, we now have to bind the various services to it, and then determine who is what in terms of master and a backup. So what we'll do now is for now, let's go to the master. For the master, we want to bind the service to it. Okay. So let's add the service. The master service will be the service out of Dallas. Okay, so here we have Dallas. Okay. So it's bound to the service out of Dallas. Let's get the domain also. Insert the domain here, and we'll do web service. You could make this maybe 5 seconds or leave it as is. Okay. Now notice that we've done a service binding. We've also given the domain. Now because we are in this is the master, we need to specify a backup virtual server. The backup virtual server goes back to the GLCLB backup virtual server. We haven't finished configuring it yet, but then we can select it here. You also have the option to disable the primary when it's down, so you can fully use the backup. So we'll do OK and done. Minimal configuration stuff. Okay, so now let's go to the backup. For the backup, let's specify the service. The service will be the backup service will be Seattle. Okay, there's no need to specify the domain because it's going to detect that the domain is already in use, so you couldn't use it. For now, we are done here. Okay. So what we have here is, and let me save this configuration. Okay. Yeah, it's not seeing everything for the backup yet because things have not been synchronized. We haven't finished the configuration. What we have here is we have two sites. We have the corresponding we have services, and then we have two virtual servers for which we've delegated one as a master and one as a backup. So this is the configuration on the master netscaler. Now let's go to the the backup netscaler, or the Seattle netscaler, and essentially repeat all the steps we've just made. Okay, I'm just going to be referring to this here just to make it easy to configure. So we go to Seattle. We start off first off with we need to log back in here. Make sure global server load balancing is enabled. We need to add the ADNS service. And the address for that is 50.23.155.140. This will be a new server. Sorry, this should be should be ADNS. ADNS Seattle. It will be 50 23 155 140. The service will be ADNS, authoritative DNS, port 53, and this is good. Okay, minimal configuration, and we are done. And I will go to the GLCLB information here. We need to go back and define two sites. This will be GLCLB master. Let me make sure that the naming is the same for the other side. Yes, GLCLB master 169.153.5373. The important thing to remember is it's going to be remote at this end, right? The master will be remote. 169.53.53.73. It was local on the other side. It's going to be, I'm going to go back so you see it again, that it's local on this side, and therefore it's going to be remote to the netscaler on this side. Okay, and then we'll just save it. We'll add the GSLB backup. GSLB backup. Now this will be local. The IP address will be 173.192.161.153. Okay, and then we'll create. Okay, so now we have our sites. Now let's create our services. For the service, just so I keep the conventional name, I'll look up this service here: GSLB service Dallas and GSLB service. We'll do GSLB service Seattle first, because that's local to the that'll be local here. GSLB service, it will be the backup. For it's local, it's backup. And because it's local to the environment, it already knows about virtual servers that already exist, load balancer virtual servers. So we just pick that up and we use that. Okay. Just to go over the configuration again, the service in Seattle, it's going to be the backup site. It's local to the Seattle netscaler. It knows about the virtual servers that already exist. And okay, we're done. Now let's go back and do the same thing for add the service for the master. This will be GSLB Dallas. Excuse me. It will be for the master. It is remote. It doesn't know about the load balancing virtual servers out of Dallas, so we have to add it. And to add it, we need to specify the IP address, which will be 169.53.53.72. Port will be port 80, and okay, and done. So now we have our services created. The sites are created, the services are created. Now we need to create the virtual servers, the master and the backup virtual servers. We need to make sure the names are correct. You want to use the same names across the board. GSLB master VS. Okay. Okay, for now. GSLB and again, okay for now. So now we have the backup servers, the virtual servers created. We have to go in there and do the various delegation for it. So we'll go to the let's do the oops. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to create it. Wonderful. So now let's go to the master. Same process as we did before. We supply the service. The master service will be out of the service binding will be out of Dallas, because Dallas is the master. So let's pick Dallas. Bind. Okay. Now let's also go to do the domain. The domain will be web service. Okay, we can give it a TTL of 5. It shouldn't be a difference here. Okay, so now we have the binding for the virtual server to service binding. We have the virtual server to domain binding, and then we need to specify the backup. All right. In this case, the backup will be this one here. Just the backup virtual server. You can disable primary when it's down. Okay. Done. Okay. So now let's go to the backup and complete the services also. Let's add the service to it. The backup service will be the one out of Seattle. Okay, save everything. Let's refresh. Okay, so you see one and one, they both do see the services that are tied to them. At this point, the configuration should be correct and it should be done. Let's go back to the master, and then let's synchronize the services. So we are going to synchronize on a remote site. We're going to force sync, and we're going to synchronize with the backup. Because we are on the master, we'll just synchronize with the backup. While it's synchronizing and presumably saving, let me just come up here and save again, just to make sure everything is saved. Okay, hasn't changed. Do a refresh. Okay. Okay, so it's supposed to finish synchronizing. I'm not sure why it's taking this long here. Configuration should be exactly the same. At this point, it should be working. What we can do, whilst it goes through, it should be fine. But what we can do is we can go ahead and go do our testing. So what should happen is we have the master that will be serving out of we have the master virtual server. Let's refresh this here. Okay, let's refresh all the configurations. Okay, it looks like it's done. We'll come up here, refresh all the configurations, just to make sure everything. And everything looks good so far. Yeah. Okay. So at this point, what should happen is that the Dallas site will serve as the master, and the backup will be the Seattle. If we want to do any request to web server Marco, if we want to ping web server Marco, we should be ending up at the Dallas site. And the ADNS services, whether we go to the netscaler service or the netscaler server or the the netscaler server or the Dallas netscaler, the Dallas netscaler or the Seattle netscaler, we should still have the Dallas as the backup. How do we go about it? What we can do for now is we can do a couple of simple tests, pings, and let's do before we do that. Let me try a couple of things here so that we can. I want to make sure I set the local resolution to the net scales. Okay, okay, I'm using them now. I just set them before we started. So these are the two net scalers which are serving as the ADNS service, right? So this is what we have for now. This is what they are going to be serving, and this is assuming that all the assuming because we are in webservice.marco.com, all the delegation has been done from the parent domain, and therefore the two netscalers are serving as the name service for the domain. Okay, so that's I needed to confirm that, and actually it is. So what we do is if we come up here and we do a lookup for web service.marco, we end up with 72. Okay. If we do a ping, and I have the other one to do a ping. Let's see, a ping to web service marco. We should come back with a 72 address. I guess the best way to do this here is let's open up a new workstation. Open up a new workstation. I want to avoid any kind of browsing history that will delay any testing here. Okay. So we go to web service, webservice.marco.com. Okay, so it goes to the Dallas web server 3 and 4 in Dallas. That's where it's going now. When I refresh, it goes to the other web server in Dallas 3 and 4. So you can see them clearly here, right? At this moment, the master is functioning well. It's coming out of 72, and everything looks to be fine. Why don't we go ahead and then take the master out of commission? Okay. So we are going to take the master. We are going to take the master and disable it. Okay. Take the master and disable it, and then we save the configuration. Typically, you should be able to sync the configuration over to the other side, and that should work. I'm not sure. It may take some time, so I'm just simply going to go to the other side also, and the virtual server, and disable it also, so it's disabled across the board on both ends. If we sync it, it should achieve the same effect. I just want to make sure it's good. So at this point, the backup should be picking up, right? The same way, regardless of where we go, we should be able to ping the backup. We're getting 72 for the first time for web service.marco. This time, what do we get? We get 152. 152 is 7 out of Seattle. Okay. If we do a ping, same thing should come up. Web service, we get 152. So you see that initially we were getting 72 for the master. Now we're getting 152 for the backup. You remember these here? They were the yellows. I think green and red. I'm gonna kill this here. Bring up a whole new browser. Just delete browsing history. We're getting 3 and 4, web server 3 and 4. So web service. Okay. So now we're getting web server 1, we're getting web server 2, right? So now we've transitioned over, the master is out of commission, and now we've gone back to the backup server. And this is basically what it's going to be until the backup, the master comes up, or you disable, whatever reason we disable the backup and push everything back to the master. This is essentially the presentation. A couple of things to be aware of is we are using webservice.marco.com. What that means is that if in your environment, the marco.com has to know to delegate the subdomain web service to the netscalers, the two netscaler, to the ADNS services. That's something that has to be considered. To make them to make the netscalers authoritative DNSs, you need both the delegation from the master, the name server delegation from the masters. You will also need to create a start of authority file and those zones stuff that are usually reserved for DNSs. I will not touch those for now, but I think this basically illustrates what we try to achieve. We set up two netscalers, one as master, the other one as backup. And when the master goes down, the backup is able to resume service. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you. Hello, this is Eddie.